Greetings all, Raphael X here with another video. Subscribe, click on the notifications button, share this video, leave a comment, all that good stuff. All right, well, let's start with prayer as we always do. In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Ave Maria, sede sapientia, ora pro nobis. In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, well, I want to talk a little bit about today, another short video on Catholic apologetics, and talking about certain news, obviously. So pessimism. Can pessimism be justified in a theological realm, right? Especially with things that are going on with the church? Yes, of course, right? Pessimism, though it usually has a negative connotation. It can be, we can't just be naively optimistic, which is the basis of the problems in the church. This optimism run amok, especially towards man after the fall. So a pessimism, there's a sound pessimism. I did a video on that, sound theological pessimism or anthropological pessimism. Just seeing man as he is after the fall. So, but today I just want to talk about a pessimism that is condemned by the church, and there could be a neo-pessimism, disordered pessimism, which is kind of like a resurgence of Donatism, which was a heresy of the 5th century, if I'm not mistaken. It's 5th century, 4th and 5th century, started before. St. Augustine was combating it because they said the church, right? The church has actually ceased to exist. And these were the pessimists at that time. The church has to be 100% pure. And this is false because obviously the church, since it has the human element of men, it makes up men, even though it's essentially the body of Christ, it still has this element of, right, it's sinful in that sense, right? The church obviously is divine, but in regards to its members, right, their members can fall away. So as St. Augustine said, with the sacraments, when a priest, even though he be unworthy, confers the sacrament, it is Christ who confers the sacrament. It is Christ the one who baptizes. So even if the priest is unworthy, the baptism is legit. So we have to be careful here with the neo-Donatism. And I kind of, my journey, I saw this as a temptation for myself. And it is true that the minister does need to have the intention when he does the sacrament, right? When he confers the sacrament. In order for it to be valid, the minister needs intention. But it doesn't have to be the actual intention, like no. There's something called the intention can be not habitual intention, where it's just you're doing it out of habit. No, but you need to at least have an intention that animates, right? An intention that is in between habitual and it's in between the actual. You're actually having the intention. There's intention that's there that animates. It's a virtual intention. So the intention is there, and the minimal intention one has to have is to confer the sacrament validly, to do what the church does, right? So that's why even an atheist can confer baptism validly, but you need to have that minimal intention. So the question is, have we gotten to the point of corruption? Right? Because there are priests. Look at what happened with that priest in St. Louis, who with 2 witches, he desecrated the altar, having sexual relations on the altar. So could there be ministers who actively have the contrary intention? And if it were so, the sacraments would be invalid. Right? Yes, but we trust that Christ, guides them, and even if they are unworthy, they at least have the intention to do what the church does, right? They're not actively working against the church. Is it a legit concern? I don't think so. I don't think God would allow that. So I just want to read this from Vatican II, kind of against the pessimist, because the church is one of the essential elements of the true Church of Christ. It is its perpetuity. Obviously what they call a relative perpetuity, which means that it's relative to men existing in the world. It's not an absolute perpetuity. Um, it's related to men existing in the world. So perpetuity obviously just means it continues in existence without stopping. So the church is perpetual, and this is from Vatican I, which is really big, right? On the church, even though it was closed earlier, they wanted to go more into ecclesiology. They did get many of the essential points. And there's a canon, Canon 7, which is precisely against the pessimists. And it says, if anyone says that the same church of Christ can be overcome by darkness or be corrupted with evils, by which it would stray from the salvific truth of faith and morals, or be diverted from its original institution, or finally, having been perverted and corrupted, would cease to exist, let him be anathema. Right? So the church it can fall into darkness, but it cannot be overcome by the darkness. Right? This goes against the essential promise in Matthew 16 of Christ. Right? That the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. So it is corrupted by evil in its members, but not to the point where it's totally overcome. And this gives us reason for hope, and we see this too because a lot of the news in the church, and rightly so, they are publishing all these scandals in the church, all these problems with the current papacy and the hierarchy, the scandalous acts. But behind the scenes, and you can find this, maybe not in mainstream Catholic news, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of good being done. There's a lot of people coming to Christ, like the thousands of Muslims who are converting to Christ. There's something good happening behind the scenes. So I want to leave it on this point of hope, and that the church is Christ. It is the mystical body of Christ, and Christ will come back to reclaim her. So let us continue, right, the good fight. And until next time, God bless you. Bye now.